Maybe you're somebody who's achieved everything that you've wanted to achieve, and you're finding that it just doesn't give you the satisfaction or feel as right as you thought it would. You built the life you thought you wanted, only to realize that maybe God is asking you to let it go. I've spent my entire adult life up to this point focused on a career in a direction that, while I enjoyed it, when I reached my goals, it felt very uncomfortable. It felt like it wasn't right. It's been a year now since I resigned from my job. I was a hospital executive. Gosh, I think probably 8 years ago, I was big into visualization and your thoughts forming your future and law of attraction. And I had built a vision board and, developed my affirmations. And it was to be a vice president and to have, a certain income and privileges. And I had reached that and some beyond what I could have imagined. I liked my job. I was really good at it. I liked doing what I did. I liked the people I worked with. I liked the organization that I served with. I liked my boss. So people are like, well, why did you walk away? Well, it's kind of a long story, and that's what this video is really for. I walked away from a career that most people would have kept. I had title. I had the income. I had the education. I had autonomy. And that's part of it what made it so hard to leave, because I wasn't running from failure. I was walking away from something that on paper looked very successful, but it didn't feel right for a number of reasons. So maybe your version isn't a career. Maybe it's a relationship, a role, a house, a place that you choose to live, a dream, a ministry, a version of yourself, a life and a timeline that isn't working out the way you thought it would. Or you have everything you thought you wanted, and it's just not bringing you what you thought it would bring you. That's where I'm at. I'm not sad, but I did something about it. I've been very grateful and fortunate to be able to take this extended sabbatical of sorts, or people have even called it early retirement. I'm not retired. Being a hospital executive is extremely rewarding, extremely challenging, and I was really good at it. And so my reason for leaving isn't because I didn't want to fail, or I didn't like the people, or I thought it wasn't meaningful. It's very meaningful. But as you realize success at a certain point, it's true what they say: above a certain level of income, success, title, you don't get any happier. You just get more of the same thing. You can have a bigger house. You can have a car, but you can have a nicer car, but it's still a car. The house is maybe a nicer house, but it's still a house. And you reach a baseline, and it doesn't make you as happy as you think it would make you. And I think I was pretty rooted in this idea that my satisfaction, my confidence, my meaning, my purpose, my worthiness is going to come from my work, my title, my income, all that. And it doesn't. It doesn't. As I worked in that role and continued to climb and look to my future, it felt like a betrayal of my potential and true purpose that I really couldn't ignore. And I reached a point where I was afraid to try something new or to leave what I know. I knew the role, all the things, the people, the familiar faces, the processes. I could do that job very, not easily, but it was comfortable. And leaving that was a scary idea. But what was also scary was the idea that I'd look back at the end of my career and wonder what I could have done. That vision scared me more than leaving it scared me. And so I gave my organization a couple months notice. This wasn't a resignation out of anger or discomfort, and it wasn't a resignation out of leaving for another job. I felt very strongly that I didn't want to leave for another job. I didn't really think that my solution was the same thing, just somewhere else. That wasn't the solution. There's a strange thing about the captivity that the good life can give you. You have it really good. But there's a thing about success that starts to cage you in And you're caged in because you have all the things that you were taught to strive for, to work for, a profession that on paper looks really good. And because it looks really good, you kind of ignore the feelings that this isn't right. And earlier on, it was like, no way, I'm not leaving my job. Are you kidding me? I worked really hard for this career. But eventually I had to ask myself if I was staying because I was called to stay, or if I was really just afraid of leaving the role and what that role gave me. And during that time when I resigned and then spent 6 weeks, almost 8 weeks actually, preparing to leave, I was so at peace and I couldn't really explain it. And I carried note cards in my pocket, and my note cards had some of my favorite Bible verses in them. In Philippians, peace I give to you. Not as the world gives do I give. And God gave me his peace. It was beyond my understanding. In Job it says, naked I came from the womb and naked I will return. I started to realize that all the things that I worked for, all the things that I acquired, degrees, professional awards, they didn't mean anything. Life is just not meant to be just a progress report. Successful life is just progress, more this, more title, more income. And once you get to where you need to be at 40, you stay there as long as you can. When I started to think about it, I'm like, what a dumb game. Like, I have this one life and I can do whatever I want. And just because I did something for a long time, it doesn't mean I have to keep doing it. Man, there's that little voice in your mind that tells you, if you leave, you're throwing away a good thing. I wish that I could tell you right now that I made the right decision. I made that decision because I feel a calling. I don't know what that calling is yet, but I felt a tug on my spirit that I needed to enter the wilderness. And I'm in the wilderness, and I've learned a lot of really important things about myself. I like having my time a lot more than I like having means. I have all I need. Beautiful wife. We have a nice home. I have my health, and I have my time. I spend it volunteering with people. I volunteer probably 25, 30 hours a week, and I love it. I have so much more fulfillment from the time I've given away in the past year than I ever had in time that I was paid for. That's an interesting realization to have there. And I think I've come to realize is if I exit the wilderness too soon, I will miss whatever it is that God has planned for me. And so if you are in the wilderness for any reason, whatever it is, the wilderness is where we're formed. It's kind of exciting to think about the fact that life is not a board game where you get to see all the places where you need to go around the whole board. Life is just a pretty extraordinary thing, and it will always give you what you don't expect. I was talking to my pastor and I asked him, I said, do you have any stories of people who did what I did or have done what I've done and where the ending turns out good? And what happened? He had nothing, but he did tell me this. He says, God uses the wilderness to shape people, and the wilderness is where he builds character and prepares people. He says, you never know if you're doing what God asks you to do, but God doesn't just have a singular path for you. And if it's moral and it's wise, it's okay. Life is about living it, experiencing it, this thing that we call time. What is time? What an amazing thing. But it runs out, and it's running out for all of us. If that's a space you recognize yourself in, a space that where you left a life that didn't go as you planned, and you're trying to make sense of what God might be doing in that space, I invite you to subscribe, to share your stories. I'd like to encourage you, but I'd also probably benefit from your encouragement too. This isn't a channel where, hey, I quit my job and life turned out great and now I've got it all figured out. No, this is not one of those channels. This is a channel where I felt the calling, a serious tug. I took a risk. I left my job in spite of the fear I felt, and I'm still falling. I told my wife, sometimes I feel like I've jumped off of a cruise ship and I'm just floating in the ocean on an inner tube, and all I see around me is just water. I don't see any land. I don't see any sign of rescue. And there are times when it starts to feel like, oh my gosh, what did I do? And I start to panic. But then I always just come back to the word. I come back to the promises and the stories of God working through people in the wilderness, and just knowing that no matter what I do, no matter what dumb decision I make, this could have ended up being a terrible decision. I don't know. Maybe it was. Maybe God is like, dude, I blessed you. What the hell are you doing? Well, he's not going to abandon me. I am confident in that. So now I live in uncertainty. Nothing is certain. Tomorrow's not certain. The next heartbeat is not certain. And so let's not waste it on building a life that is built on the illusion that there's just one right way to do it. I wish you the best, and I hope that you'll join me and be a part of this journey and share whatever journey you're on too. Because there's probably a lot more people like me than I think, where you're living a life that people might think you're a little crazy. And sometimes you feel like, yeah, I lost my mind. I lost my marbles. What in the fuck did I do? You're in good company. Bye for now.